I had an idea of who he'd be, foreign and full of mystery. Tall and dark, he'd play guitar. He tried so hard to win my heart. But he's more than all that. Changed the world that I had. An unexpected surprise that's so very sweet. Yes, he makes me happy, and we can't stop laughing. Sometimes life is better than fantasy. Love changes everything. Love changes everything.
Well, I remember, so well the joy that we felt when we knew that we were going to have a little girl.
Madison came a little early. That was very nervous for us. She was very small. Actually, she was brought her home and she's as small as my shoe was. A very special baby. We treat her as a little miracle baby as well.
For us, Madison is so precious in that she has a very gentle spirit, but she has a very, it's a strength about her. And I think that was exhibited even from the very beginning. And so we get to see the strong strength in her character, but she has a very warm and gentle spirit. So that.
She's always been fun to play with and a joy to it. I know getting on the floor and playing dress up in a game that was called Pretty Princess allowed you to put on little, if you won a piece, you get to put on little plastic jewelry, and of course I'm having to do that as well, and tea parties with her.
Mm-hmm. We had a picture window in the dining room, and she would love to look for her dad to come in from work, and she's a daddy's girl, and she said, yes, I'm his princess, and that's the truth, yes. And she used to sing a little song that she was precious, and she would call it Preppish. I'm Preppish. And she would, but she loved that little song. And then she always wanted to go to Old McDonald's, not just McDonald's for chicken nuggets, but she'd call it Old McDonald's. She enjoyed art immensely. And then she loved sports too. She played soccer and she played softball. She went to Faith Christian School and played, on the state championship team. And so she loved her church, and she was very involved in mission trips. We did a daddy-daughter date night, and we planned a big event and made it very special. And she looked forward every year to Valentine's, where she would get to go on a special date with her dad. And then we did a mother-daughter tea. And she helped me a lot with the creativeness of planning the teas and planning those daddy-daughter date nights.
And she's still coordinating and planning events for everybody.
She loves planners, and she is a list maker and very organized in her planning. And so, we would tease, but a great gift that you can give her is to take her out to look at all the planners that are available, and then let her select her favorite planner for that year. Her friends in high school called her Mommy Madison, because she would always see after them and make sure that whatever event they were going to, that they all had the snacks they needed, they all had the schedule, they all knew what was going on. And so she was always nurturing and loving and kind of that mommy to her group of friends. We have grown to love the Weinkauf family. Our family gets together a lot, and we have, kind of made a tradition for a long time of going to grandparents' house, for dinner on Sundays after church, and we still do. And we do a lot of things together, and it was good to find that the Weinkaufs have a great family that loves to spend time together and do fun things together. And so I think for me, the joy is that we have the opportunity to be at the church, to witness their covenant commitment one to another. And then I think together is, just two families just planning a great time of celebration for our children finding their life mate.
My first, obviously, recollection of Ken is that he was so big. He was just, had broad shoulders, and he was just, in fact, in the delivery room, I said, suit him up, and turns out he would play football. Always negotiating, as he would get older, for sure. I told him it was not a democracy around here, it was a dictatorship. And while I didn't always want to be in charge, God put me in charge, and that's what I have to carry out till he's 18.
The things I remember are that through his life, food's important and sports are important. They were playing t-ball, 3-4 years old. Mm-hmm. There's so many kids that they've got a first baseman, second baseman, shortstop, third baseman, and then they've got an extra one in between those. He's playing second base. So the kid hits the ball off the tee, and it's kind of heading Kent's direction, and so they both go for the ball to field the ball, and they run into each other and fought, just end over end. And I'm thinking, oh boy, we're gonna get the tears and wailing when they get up. The one kid's kind of, crying a little bit, and Kent gets up, and the first thing he does, he's got the ball in his mitt, and he takes the ball and throws it first. Then he turns around to me and is like, was that my ball or his? And I was like, well, that's your ball, you're good.
He gets up, he's hungry.
Yeah, he just protects his food.
And he protects his food, yeah.
When he was a baby eating, he would, if there was more than one jar, he would have his arm kind of around the other jar to make sure it didn't leave while we were working on this jar. And he kind of always was concerned about where the next meal was going to come from or what it was going to be. He uses his mind a lot. He's very interested in business, very business oriented. Economics that's real important to him.
He just hated mowing the lawn, and he came into me, he said, I'm going to tell you one thing. He said, I'm going to grow up and make enough money that I'm going to hire someone to do your lawn for the rest of your life. And I said, you know what, I'm going to remember that. I'm going to remember that you're going to hire out my lawn to be done for the rest of your life. And that's really good with me. But until you get there, right now we have the lawn to do. But he would get up at 5:30 in the morning and go cook breakfast for the homeless. And he did that on his own. We never got him up or anything else like that. He kind of started that mission work with the homeless through Asbury and his youth group there. And he just took that on. That really concerned him all of his life. Again, it's around food. He's not only worried about himself eating, he's worried about other people eating. But I would have to say in high school, when a high school kid will get themselves up at 5 o'clock to be downtown at 5:30 in the morning to cook, God's placed something in your heart. My gosh, he was so far conservative. In fact, he was never interested in talking to or dating anyone or having as a friend anybody who was liberal at all. So that was kind of interesting too, yet he has the soft heart. He can give a bear hug like no other, I can tell you that much. He used to squeeze my neck so hard I couldn't breathe. But he's a great guy, good friend. I had said, Curtis, Ruth's an awfully nice girl. Certainly Ruth has some nice friends for Kent. And he goes, yeah, and he just kind of brushed me off. But when Donita also came to him and said, the same thing, and neither Donita nor I knew that either had said that.
Madison and her college roommate had gone to a wedding of two of her friends, Curtis and Ruth. And Curtis and Kent knew one another at Colorado School of Mines and had begun their friendship there. And so Madison had gone to the wedding of Curtis and Ruth, and Kent was actually in the wedding. And it was a destination wedding.
Well, we were headed down for Curtis and Ruth's wedding. I'm always curious when you go to weddings, being single, what kind of girls are gonna be there.
And I pulled up the phone and I showed him everybody's Facebook video or Facebook photo. And we stumbled upon Madison, and he said, wait a second. And he took another look, and then he took his eyes off the road. And it was a dangerous drive for a while. But I remember distinctly Kent seeing Madison's Facebook and thinking, oh, she looks pretty. Or actually, he said she's hot. So
the whole night I was trying to figure out, how to go talk to her, kind of building the anticipation up in my head. Finally get a chance to meet her. And it's more of just a casual hello, how are you doing, in a group setting, and that was kind of it.
I wouldn't say I had that connection right then, but as we sat down for dinner, I remember him at his table at the wedding party, and then I was at my table. And we would kind of, I would say flirt with eye exchanges, kind of like glancing at each other and smiling and then looking away kind of thing. And then Ruth actually came over in the middle of the dinner and asked Kristen and I, we're like, hey, Jason and Kent want to go out afterwards. Do y'all want to? And we're like, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. And so Ruth was like, okay, great. And so she told them that we were going to go. And then as the night went on, Kristen and I were kind of like, well, that's not really what we do. We don't really go out. It'd be like our first time to actually do something like that. We were a little uneasy about it. And we're like, let's just go back up to the hotel room.
We ended up waiting on them in the lobby of the hotel for a while, and they never ended up coming. So honestly, you could say that my first encounter with Madison, she stood me up.
Okay, so after my wedding, when Kent and I were hanging out, he asked me, he kept pushing and pushing more to find out more information about Madison and kind of her background, and most importantly, if she was single.
Ruth texted me about a month later and was like, hey, do you want to go on a date with Kent, the best man from the wedding, and Curtis and I? I was like, oh, well, I guess they're coming down to Fort Worth. They need to find somebody for Kent to date or go on a date with so he's not like a third wheel.
I remember when Kent came to pick her up, and, such a gentleman. He came up to meet us and came in, and we were able to visit with him. And he just did a wonderful job of seeing to her and opening the car door for her and doing all those things that you pray for.
And we went to dinner at this place called Lily's, and it was pretty good.
It was a little more of a casual kind of hole-in-the-wall place, or?
It was fancier. Okay. The chicken fried steak was expensive, so I would say it was a little fancier. Okay. I remember I ordered chicken fried steak. I hope he wouldn't have mind, because I didn't want him to think like I had an eating problem, or I love food, so I wanted him to know that right off the bat.
And then from there, we went to a fondue place.
At the fondue place, I remember Ruth and I went to the restroom, and when I went to the restroom, she's like, so how do you think it's going? And we're like, I think it's going good. And then I think we came back, and in the meantime, I think Curtis and Kent were talking about the date. I'm not sure if y'all were or not.
We were.
But then Curtis and Ruth got back together sometime during the night and were talking about what each of us said. And then I know Ruth came back to me and was like, Kent says it's going well. So we were all doing this like,
so it felt like middle school a little bit.
Yeah. It was good.
It was fun, and afterwards we went to go leave Fort Worth, and this is where all the trouble started. We went to the parking garage at the top where we've parked, and I had a security system on there, and it wasn't working correctly, and I wanted to get frustrated, but I didn't want to get frustrated in front of Madison either. So I tried to keep my cool as much as I could and try to figure out what the problem was. And in the meantime, it was taking long enough that Ruth and Madison decided to go to a coffee shop for 30 minutes, an hour.
Car was still like the alarm going off. Yeah, but then AAA called Curtis and said that they were there. So they're like, okay, good. So we get there, and he's like, I can't go up the parking garage. So Kent and Curtis had to
push the car all the way down 7 stories to the bottom for the tow truck to be able to tow it.
As the alarm is still going off, and security guards asking, are you still in this car?
And in the end, I was just hoping that we had enough of a date at the first part of it to maybe get a second date. And I ended up telling her later that I owed her a first date again. Our second date was either the next weekend or the weekend after that, and it was Super Bowl Sunday. I was trying to leave to get back to a fraternity chapter meeting, and I was sitting on Madison's parents' couch watching the game with her, and I was trying to read the situation because in my mind, I really wanted to kiss her. I thought that she would like to be kissed, and I thought the moment was there. It's just, the opportunity didn't arise. The whole time we were watching the Super Bowl, and I was saying I needed to go and I needed to get back to Tulsa by 9 o'clock, I think was our chapter meeting. And I'm waiting for her to kind of give me a signal or just, a little bit of body language.
But I was taught to be like, the guy has to do the first move, so don't do anything. So I didn't do a thing.
Just the whole game, I couldn't even tell you who was playing in the game, let alone, the score. So I told her I had to leave. And on my way out the front door on the front porch, I asked her if I could kiss her.
And I was like, yes. I got all giddy. And then it was really quick that I remember, just like a peck, and then he went on his way, and then I was like, oh my gosh. I remember going back in the house, and how girls do, I don't know how to explain it. You just get so excited, you want to text all your friends.
It wasn't as spontaneous as I would have wanted it to be, but there was no way I was leaving there without a kiss.
I mean, they went from, going on a double date with Ruth and Curtis to someone was going to either Dallas or coming to Tulsa every single weekend after that.
So they started dating and talking to each other from that moment on. We didn't have anything more to do with.
Next time we knew, Madison was moving up to Tulsa.
Yeah, really.
But I always told myself I'm never moving out of Texas, no matter what. And I think it's funny how love in a guy that you really cherish and love will change that for you. Okay, so he texted me a Sunday before, so it was like a week in advance, and he said, hey, do you want to go to the Philbrook Christmas tree lighting with me next Saturday? And I would have to say, instantly when I got that text, my heart did stop. And I don't know if it was like I knew he was going to propose, or like I knew that he's not this planned and that he is up to something kind of thing.
So my plan was to kind of take her back there, meander through their garden area where it was all lit up, then propose to her. Well, the weather had a different plan. Some more cold weather came and the trees were iced over and it was very cold. And I had planned on doing a nice dinner afterwards to celebrate with whatever family members were in town that night. And I kind of played it off that it was a celebratory dinner for my job that I had just gotten. And she was taking a while, and taking her time, which normally she's on time, but for some reason today, she was kind of taking her time, and I'm sitting here looking at my watch, and I'm thinking, well, I need to be there at 5 right when they close so we can get in, otherwise we won't be able to get in at all. And got her in the car, barely made it there. My mom's texting me on the way asking, saying that the lady at Philbrook says we need to get there as soon as possible. They're about to close the door. We finally get there.
And there was nobody there. The parking lot was empty. It was just kind of quiet. There was a security guard and then 2 people working at the front desk that took our tickets. And so right when we walked in, we were walking around to all these doors that go out to the garden of the Philbrook. And they say, garden closed due to inclement weather.
She goes, I don't think we're supposed to be here. I think it's closed. Are you sure that that this is open today, or they still have this going on? I was like, yeah, I'm sure. I called, I have tickets. I convinced her that, we were supposed to be there. And we kind of went out the back door and it was really cold. And I'm sure at that point she was questioning why we were still going through with this. And so we're walking around and I finally get to that spot, but I, had her look back up at the house. I said, I have one last Christmas present for you before you go down to Fort Worth to spend Christmas with your family. I opened the box and I kneeled down and I looked into her eyes and I said, Madison, you're the most incredible person that I could ever ask for. You are truly a caring person. You're original and your own, and you see me the way that nobody else sees me. And I just told her how much she had meant to me, and I asked her if she would marry me.
I remember just being gleaming and yes. I was surprised that he actually proposed, but I kind of had that suspicion. I was surprised. I think one of the first questions I had was, did you ask my dad? Because I had no idea when he had asked him. He's so sneaky about that.
It's you and me.
me, it's you and me.